Hi, everyone. Good morning. Thank you for joining. Let's just wait a couple of minutes to see if everyone is able to join before we start this webinar. Okay, in the meantime, let me just share my screen for the first presentation. Before I put it in the presentation mode, can my colleagues confirm that you can see my screen?
Yes, we can. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so let's start. I'm going to put this in a presentation mode to see if it works properly. All right, so good morning, everyone. Welcome to this webinar on citizen engagement with digital twins. This webinar is organized in the framework of the initiative called CREST. This stands for Climate Resilient Coastal Urban Infrastructures through Digital Twinning. My name is Dora Fazekas. I represent Innova Plus, and we support the implementation of CREST. So just a bit about the agenda for this meeting. I know this was already published at the registration page, but we have a little bit more information for you to see what we are going to discuss today. This is a 1 hour and a half long webinar. And we're going to start off with a short introduction just to set the scene. This is going to be given by myself. And this will be followed by a 15-minute presentation at 11:15 on the sustainability and resilience monitoring framework for urban areas that we developed in CREST. And this is going to be presented by two colleagues of mine, Guillaume Boyan and Lina Estafi. Guillaume is an associate professor at the Bordeaux School of Economics at the University of Bordeaux, and Lina is a research engineer at ATIS laboratory at INRAE in France. Then we are moving on to the next presentation on the policy co-creation processes that we have also developed in CREST, and these are based on participatory and citizen science approaches. My colleague Anita Zarzyska is going to talk a bit about that. She's a professor at Lazarski University, Warsaw, and a researcher at the Institute of Urban and Regional Development in Poland. Then we are going to hear a bit about the technological part. My colleague Scott Young is going to show you the digital twin and augmented reality technology that we also developed in this project for identifying what-if scenarios around specific use cases in urban areas in CREST. Scott is a senior project manager and an architect at Augment City in Norway. And then finally, before the Q&A, we're going to hear a bit about the policy perspectives and what kind of impacts CREST can create and created already on urban policymaking for climate change adaptation. My colleagues Ingrid Gjelsvik and Rosemary Aguedo are going to discuss this. Ingrid is an international advisor at the Møre-og-Romsdal County Council in Norway, and Rosemary is a sustainability consultant at the Kristiansund municipality in Norway. So after walking through the more, I would say, technical and technological parts of this initiative, we can open up the discussion and we can discuss any questions that you may have to the speakers. And then we are going to wrap up at the end with some final remarks. So before going into the presentations, some housekeeping rules. for you. If you have questions, and we hope you do have questions, please put them written in the chat, and we will collect them and discuss together and try to answer them in the Q&A session. So this Q&A session after all the different presentations. Please note that this webinar is being recorded, and we're going to place the recording at the CREST website at crestproject.eu. We have decided that for data protection purposes, we are not going to record the Q&A session. So after you sending any questions and we answering them, we can also open up the discussion and discuss any further questions verbally. All right. So just a little bit about CREST. So CREST is a 3-year initiative. We started off in 2022. This is co-funded by a funding program called JPI Urban Europe, and it has 9 partners and 3 cities involved. You can see the cities on the right-hand side on the map. These are all, I would say, coastal or near coast cities, starting off with Bordeaux in France, Kristiansund on the top in Norway, and Kołobrzeg on the right in Poland. These acted kind of test beds for the different solutions, testing different solutions that we developed in CREST. And our main aim with CREST was to help these cities and vulnerable urban areas to set up and roll out collaborative platforms, so engaging local citizens and stakeholders to work together using different tools such as digital twinning and cooperation approaches, and to work together using these tools to support environmental decision-making and innovative policy practices, making their cities more resilient to climate change. We have focused specifically on urban infrastructure, so the use cases and all of that were more around urban infrastructures and making those infrastructure more resilient to climate change. Not going into details because you will hear more about the details later on from other speakers. So we implemented the project in different steps and developed different tools, as I said. First, we started off with developing a kind of a monitoring and impact assessment framework that urban areas can use to measure their progress in terms of sustainability and climate resilience. We also developed, and I think this is kind of a core of this project, digital twinning technology that can be used, and of course was used in CREST for engaging local stakeholders and citizens into the project and help their decision making for urban transformation. When gathering the citizens and stakeholders in the 3 urban areas, we use digital twinning also to promote the capacity building and apply different cooperation approaches to this to help them discuss and take decisions for increasing the resilience of the urban infrastructure in their own cities. We focused on specific cities, as I said, but our aim is also to engage, make a greater, broader citizen and stakeholder engagement across Europe, to be able or to make sure that our results can be also applied in other cities, not necessarily coastal, although we focused on coastal cities in this project. About the partners, and this is my final slide. So this initiative is coordinated by Augment City. This is an SME from Norway. And we also have other partners from the 3 countries, from Norway, France, and Poland. Møre it's a county authority from Norway. We also have a municipality from Poland. It's called Kołobrzeg Gmina. and we have different research centers, as I mentioned, ATIS from INRAE in France, IRMIR from Poland, and on the bottom, BSF from the University of Bordeaux in France. And we have two other organizations on the left hand, Accent Sudan Association from France, and on the right hand side, Increase, it's a company from Poland. Okay, so let me just stop my presentation and stop sharing. As I said, if you have questions, please put them in the chat, okay? Before moving into the different presentations, my colleague is already launching a small poll for you with some questions, and I will hand over the floor to Sylvia Chibien, who is doing the poll to introduce you to these questions. Please, Sylvia.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to CREST webinar, and thank you for joining us. This is an interactive webinar. Of course, we will talk in the Q&A session, but we prepared 3 questions for you, 3 polls, just to set a little bit the scene and help us understand who are the participants of the webinar. So I hope you can see these 3 polls. The first one is about how familiar you are with citizen science. The second one is...
I think we stopped hearing you, Sylvia, but I think you were reading out the question. So how familiar are you with the citizen science? And we would like you to respond to this. So I think you are back, Sylvia, so it's back to you, please.
Yeah, the second one is about your knowledge about augmented reality and digital twin technologies. And the third one is for helping us understand which is your background and your primary role. So it will be great if you could answer to this poll. And I just want to check if you're seeing it. Do you see the polls? Can you answer?
Yes, we can see the poll. So please, each participant, can you just quickly vote? First, on how familiar are you with citizen science? Obviously, in CREST, we work with citizen science approaches. So we would like to hear a little bit about you and how familiar you are with this term and with this scientific area.
Okay.
I don't think we are receiving votes, or at least I cannot see.
I have 11 answers.
Perfect. Very good.
You see the results?
No.
No, okay. I think that not everyone answered yet.
I can see the result. I think most people have answered. So
yeah, okay. View the results. Yes, that's great. Okay, I'm sorry, I have the microphone on. So we can stop here, and I let the floor to the next speaker.
Perfect. Thank you for your
Lina
answers.
and Guillaume.
Yes, I will share the screen for myself and Guillaume, and I will let the floor to Guillaume, who will speak first. I hope you see the presentation.
Thank you, Lina. Yes, we can see it.
Okay, perfect. I'll let the floor to you, Guillaume.
Thank you very much, Lina. So I am Guillaume Pouyanne. I am an associate professor here in Bordeaux at the BSE laboratory, which is Bordeaux School of Economics. So I'm an economist specialized in the city science. Lina, can you please?
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
So our work here in Bordeaux was around the working package 1, which is about sustainability and resilience monitoring framework of urban areas. So our objective is to build a monitoring assessment framework, a monitoring and impact assessment framework to understand and to follow the progress of our three cities in becoming more resilient, more climate resilient, and to know if they are engaged in meeting the UN's Sustainable Development Goals. So our work was first to identify a set of KPIs, which is key performance indicators, which allow us to follow the city in their progress towards resilience. And we also had to select a set of KPIs and select and search for the data. So it has been said that our three cities are Kristiansund, Kolobsek, and Bordeaux Métropole. And the point of this first working package was to feed the digital twin with data to facilitate monitoring cities' progress in climate resilience. So we didn't have the time to follow the cities because we only started in 2022. So we had only 3 years of progress. So it's difficult to see it in the data, but the tool is here. It is embedded in the digital twin infrastructure, so we can follow in the following years the progress of such cities. So our KPIs for evaluating sustainable cities, we chose U4SCC framework, which is an initiative from United Nations. It is a set of 92 indicators, which are divided in 3 dimensions: economy, environment, and society and culture. And each dimension has got sub dimension, and then you've got a category. So we had to collect the data, and we had to estimate, we had to compute all these KPIs. So it was very long and hard work to collect all this data for 92 indicators for 3 cities. Some data is missing, of course, but we build this framework, and we had to make some choices because the KPIs represent values. They are mainly quantitative, but some are qualitative. Of course, we have a reference here, which is 2023. The problem is that you have to make the KPIs talk to us because it's only a value. A KPI is only a value, and we have to compare it to a target value to know if the objective is fulfilled or not. So we had to discuss. We had long discussions about the target values, which is the best target, and so on. So we fixed the target values in compliance with some predefined objectives, such as sustainable development goals, of course, or we extrapolated the target value from national levels. So we took the national mean, and we calculate if we are below or above the national mean. The KPIs can take several possible values, for example, in percentage or per 100,000 inhabitants and so on. So you've got some examples here which show the ICT infrastructure category. So you can see the indicators, which are household internet access, for example, or wireless broadband subscriptions, and so on. So you can see in the first column the value for the cities we have studied, the unit of measure, of course, in the second column, and the target value is in the third column. So we were able to compare to this target. So sometimes when it's a percentage, the target is 100%, for example, or you can see on the second line, for example, the target is mean, the national mean. So you can see that our city here is above the mean, the national mean. And Lina, you can continue. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Guillaume. So I will quickly present myself. I'm Lina Essafi, and I work as a research engineer in the unit ETIS, which is part of the Public Institute INRAE in Bordeaux, in France. So as was said by Guillaume, after having collected the data for the KPIs, we wanted to make the KPIs and the visualization of the KPIs available to stakeholders and to regional and local decision makers to monitor the progress of their urban areas over time in meeting the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And so for that, we used visual and interactive metrics to portray those indicators and to have an overview of the progress level. And we selected what we call sunbird charts, as it is demonstrated here on the right, which is particularly relevant to report on the ordering and classification of and the status of the KPIs. So I will move on directly to a website, a dashboard that we created, which contains the sunburst for each city under study, and which also explains the aggregation rule, also how we computed those indicators, and it gives also some other general elements that are relevant on climate resilience. So I will change my presentation quickly. Okay, I hope everyone sees the dashboard. Just a quick confirmation.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, cool. So here is the homepage of the dashboard that we created, where we explain what the work package 1 is about, and also the details of the computation of the indicators and the aggregation rules. We will take a first look at the application on the Kristiansund city and the state of climate resilience and sustainability of this city under area and the study. So we have completed at 98% the data collection, which is very satisfactory. And we also indicated which indicators meet the target and which are the ones that are in moderate progress and are far below the target. And here the colors are also the same that are that we can see in the sunburst chart. But before I move on to this and to zooming in the different dimensions, I wanted also to show you a small tab which contains a selection of the indicators that are directly related to climate resilience. So I will just show you quickly what are these different indicators. We have the emergency response average time for the case of Kristiansund, which is about 11 minutes. Also, we have the state of resilience plans, whether they are existent or not. And here in the case of Kristiansund, it's in progress. We have also details on the population living in disaster-prone area, the number of fire service per 100,000 inhabitants, and also the number of natural disaster-related deaths, and finally the disaster-related economic losses. So this is a small view of the indicators directly related to climate resilience. And here to have a general view of the state of the indicators. So as was introduced by Guillaume, we have three main dimensions, which are economy, environment, and society and culture. So here for the case of Kristiansund, it is performing well and on the path toward urban resilience when we look at dimensions like environment, which is pretty in green. And also when we look at safety, which contains most of the climate resilience indicators, as I showed you before. And also on social inclusion here, which contains indicators on poverty, gender income equity, Gini coefficient, and etc. As for the smartness of the city, which is displayed here in the subdimension ICT, we can see that is performing rather well, except for some sectors like water and sanitation and drainage. But in general, it is performing well in terms of smartness and technology-driven public services. And finally, we see that in culture, it seems to be a bit lacking behind, but we only have two indicators, so it is not very specific. There are other indicators that we can add to this dimension. So this is for the case of Kristiansund. We will take now a look at Kolobjek. Here we are a bit less successful in the data collection, where we have 51% of the indicators that are filled. And when we take a look at the sunburst chart, we can see that most of the lacking indicators are part of the infrastructure subdimension, and mainly transport, where we don't have many indicators that were completed. As for the other second, for the half indicators for which we do have indicators, the performance is good, especially when we look at sectors like water and sanitation. For example, here where everything seems to be to show strong results on water supply loss and also wastewater collection, etc. It is also performing good in terms of social inclusion here on the left, and for the health dimension. So this is a bit the overview for Kolobjek. We also can point out on the safety dimension, which for which we don't have many indicators, but also some of them seem to be lagging behind the target, like the understaffed police service in Kolobjek. So now I will move on to Bordeaux, the final city under study. The data collection is relatively satisfactory, with 81% of the indicators that are filled. And if we look deeper, we will see that it is performing well in the economy dimension, and a bit tempered in the transport sector. So we don't have strong results for this sector. But on the other hand, it's doing well in the ICT dimension as well, like Kristiansund. And there's some work to do in terms of environment, as we can see here in yellow. And yeah, that's about it. But so since we have too many indicators, it is a bit difficult to do a comparison of the three, but we can see that each city has its own strengths and disadvantages. And we also wanted to point out, as was said by Guillaume, to the necessity to have centralized data because the information to collect for the KPIs are usually scattered, and we have to look over many websites to have centralized data. Apart from that, we used the U4SCC framework, which is recognized as the most comprehensive framework, assessment framework. But it is also important, equally important, to have some tailored indicators that are specific to the case of the city that we want to study its sustainability and climate resilience. And finally, speaking about monitoring over time to see the progress level of the indicators, since the data is not usually available for long periods of time, it is a bit hard to do a rightful measurement of the progress level, but it is possible in case of recorded data to have a temporal analysis over time and to simulate the path toward to which goes the indicators. And that's about it. Thank you. I'll let the floor to the next speaker.
Thank you very much, Guillaume and Lina. I would like to invite Anita Zaciszka from Poland to give us a little bit of an overview of the methodologies and approaches we use for co-creation in this project.
Thank you, Dora. Let me know if you can see my presentation.
We can see it very well. Yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So my name is Anita Zarzecka, and I work at Łazarski University in Warsaw and also in IRMIR. This is Institute for Urban and Regional Development. And as IRMIR, in this project, we were working on work package 2. It was co-creation processes and citizen science processes. So I will focus in my presentation on the methodology for involving citizens, the methodology we used in this project, in this work package 2. As it was said before, the project covered 3 areas. It was Kristiansund, Bordeaux, and Kołobrzeg. And each region has his unique characteristics, but they all face the challenge of dealing with the effects of climate change. So the CREST was focused on the increasing urban resilience to climate change. And let me tell something about the resilience. According to Resilient City Network, the urban resilience is defined as the capacity of individuals, communities, institutions, businesses, and systems within a city to survive, adapt, and grow, no matter of what kind of chronic stresses and acute shocks they experience. The literature, of course, offers various definitions of urban resilience. Some of them emphasize the technical issues related to infrastructure, related to operation of the city services, quality of the city service, and so on, while others emphasize the importance of the social resilience. And the social resilience is the ability of people, of citizens, and the society to react and adapt. It involves learning, changing, recognizing the essential roles of power, policymakers, politics as well, and participation. Participation, especially when facing unexpected challenges. But regardless of the definition we use, strengthening all aspects of resilience, especially if they support each other and create so-called synergy effect, makes a city more resilient to shocks and challenges, including those, of course, related to climate change. We focus on those kind of shocks, but we can see the resilience in the broader way as well. Citizens, lay citizens as we call them, must be widely involved in decision-making at all stages of the decision-making process, just to strengthen the resilience, as I said before, this aspect of resilience, the social resilience. Participation gives lay citizens a better understanding, which is very important, the better understanding of the problems the city is struggling with, and what is equally important, greater support for the solutions that are used. When they are used, when the decisions are made, if the citizens were involved in the process, decision-making process, their support for the solution is better, which is very important. Our projects developed a research protocol. In our project, we developed a research protocol just to enhance the citizen participation in the decision-making process. And this protocol included the following steps. It was the survey and it was the focus meetings, then data collection and building digital twins, and then co-creation workshop. And let me say something about those stages. In the first step, we wanted to understand citizens' opinion, just like citizens' opinion on various aspects of resilience. And the tool we chose for this was a survey. It's a perfect tool if you want to know something about people opinion. It is easy, and we developed a set of questions, translated them into local languages. The questions were nearly identical across the three countries, across the three cities, with just minor adjustment just to the local context. Of course, I do not have time now during this webinar to present the results in detail, but I invite you and strongly invite you to visit the project website where links to scientific articles will be soon available, and we will present them just with details, all the results of this survey. And let me share just selected questions to illustrate the direction of our research. We do not ask people directly about the resilience because we were concerned that the term might be unfamiliar for them. Instead, our questions focused more on personal feelings, personal observations of threats. However, we formulated a closed list of climate threats just to better comparison between the cities. Respondents were asked to rate each of threat on scale of from 1 to 5, when 1 meant very weak threat or weak answer, and the 5 meant very strong threat or very strong answer. What you see in this table and this slide, it is average rating for all respondents for the city. For 3, the highest rated threats. So for Bordeaux, it was heat wave, higher maximum temperatures, and urban heat islands. For Kristiansand, it was heavy rainfall, strong wind and gale, storm and hail. And for Kołobrzeg, strong wind and gale, heat waves, and heavy rains. We also asked people, the citizens, how the municipality handles with the threats. It's just their opinions, how they see what the municipality does. And the list of the threats was exactly the same as in the previous question. And what you see in the table is the average rating for all respondents for the 3 threats that cities cope the best with the best way in the opinion of the citizens of the cities. And for Bordeaux, water shortages, flooding and low water periods. For Kristiansand, strong wind and gale, flooding from the sea. And from the Kołobrzeg, negative records, landslides, lower than usual temperature, and waves of cold air. It was what pointed as for the cities, what municipalities do the best, cope the best with. We in the next question I wanted to show you, we asked about the future. The table shows the average rating for the 3 climate threats that respondents believe will increase the most over the next 10 or 20 years. So the survey, of course, it was a lot of, there was more question, there was a lot of open question as well. And the survey overall gave us some information which is necessary for the next stage of the study, focus groups. So let me change the slide. We invited various stakeholders to the focus groups. That was primarily professionals very closely associated with the city and the people who influence the city decision, who are the part of city's multiple functions and so on. The aim was identify key threats and specific locations for the further action in our projects. The focus meetings also had jointly agreed scenarios, the common scenarios for each city. The individual stages in each city were the same, the question was the same, and so on. In the first stage, we wanted to present the issue of urban resilience to the group of professionals. So we asked the participants to consider 2 questions before the meeting, and the question was how resilient is the city from their point of view, from the point of view of their workplace, and what are the most significant challenges that should be made in the city to make it more resilient to climate change. We just want them to be in the state of mind where they are thinking about the resilience before the meeting. And during the meeting, participants exchange their answers, discuss the topic. And then after this part, the second part was to show them they review the survey results from their city. And I have to say that professionals did not always agree with the people's voice, with the people's opinion in the surveys. And this shows how important it is to include citizens in all decision-making process and at all stages, because they are ultimate users of the cities, and their views and needs and how they see things, and it's very important, and it should always be considered in all the processes, because the understanding of each other points of view allows to develop solutions. They are more accepted, which is very, very important, and they are better suited to the needs of direct users, the direct users. The following 2 stages of focus meetings aim to develop the list of the most important threats and places. We ask the participants just to choose some use cases that could be used as examples for the further work. We ask the teams to select several use cases, not just one, because the final choice of which place would be used in the further stages, was used in the further stages of the project, was based on data availability. Unfortunately, even though we seem to live in the world filled with data, with too much data, and we think that data is everywhere. As Lina said before, the lack of data was a significant problem in our project, and I think that from my and my colleagues' experience, it's the common problem in scientific projects. The next stage after the focus groups was collecting data and creating the scenarios for each city, but Scott will talk more about this in the next presentation, so I will not focus on this right now. I just want to say that it was the next stage, and the next step was co-creation workshops. Once the scenarios were already ready, we already have them. We organize workshops in all 3 cities. There were organized workshops. People were asked to find solutions based on the scenarios they were presented, and we wanted to. Our goal was to compare the advantages of using digital twins, so the technology, and the traditional methods such as paper maps, just to see if they what solutions works better and which is better for the citizen participation and gives better solutions. Since using the digital twins is a rather new technology, we wanted just to check whether and what advantages it has over working with traditional paper maps. We decided to use charrette methodology here for the workshops in both teams, in the digital twin and analog twin, as we call them. The digital twin works with the digital team works with digital twins, and analog team worked with paper maps. And we used this method for all cities. So it was the common methodology either. And the photos, you can see, shows the group work with traditional map. And this is the first photo. It is Kołobrzeg from Poland, and as I can see, and the second photo shows the group working with digital twins. I think that is Paul presenting the digital twin, and this France, and this is Bordeaux in France. Here again, in the moment, Scott will discuss the main differences in work between both groups. So I won't focus on this right now, but I just want to give you just a little spoiler. Working with digital groups was definitely more engaging for the participants, and their opinions are clearly positive about this way of working with the scenarios. Just to summarize what I wanted to say about this citizen science and the participation in our project, just to achieving some synergy. Look at the problem from 2 perspectives. This is must have. The lay citizens, who are the residents and users of the city, the professionals involved in the city decision-making process, and other stakeholders. It is crucial to create opportunities for those 2 groups to meet, to collaborate. And by doing so, we can ensure that both perspectives are considered in the final decision-making process, which is very, very important. Just to emphasize in the whole process, just it's important to emphasize the active involvement of lay citizens in proposing solutions. It is somehow in some processes it's harder, in some processes is easier, but it is very, very important to do it. And we recognize that there are, of course, some challenges due to lack of expert knowledge on the citizen side, but the digital twinning seems to be the resolution, something that helps a lot. And this technology can just bridge the gap, the knowledge gap. This approach helps citizens to understand the complex issues and contribute to the whole process. And what are the benefits? The benefits is several benefits, but it is the most important is that it increases understanding of threats and the effects of proposed solutions, and with the better understanding, there is better way of accepting it. Additionally, it empowers citizens to play a meaningful role in the decision-making process, and it's leading to not only more accepted, but more effective solutions as well. So using this methodology, we can develop just more resilient solution for the cities, and more with this synergy between citizens' knowledge and the professional knowledge. We want to share the whole experience from the CREST, and we are preparing or working now on citizen science guidebook. This guidebook will include information about what we managed to do, what were our achievements, what we failed to do, as the failure is always the best teacher, what difficulties, what challenges we had. We also share our thoughts and propose a model, just way of doing this kind of processes for engaging citizens in cities, for just develop for the cities, for decision-making processes in the cities. Not only in the context of climate change, just in a broader context as well, some more universal way of thinking. We want this guidebook to be as practical as possible and to be used by local governments to design decision-making processes with the participation of lay citizens. And this guidebook will be soon published on the CREST website. It will be ready in March, so soon it will be available for all the who wanted to know what we've done in this project and what could be done and should be done during the decision-making process in the cities. So thank you. If you've got any questions, I will be happy to answer them.
Thank you very much, Anita. Again, for any questions, please use the chat, whether it's related to the co-creation processes or the measurement or measuring the progress against sustainability and climate resilience in cities. And we'll come back to you on this. So I would like to give the floor now to Scott to present a little bit the technological part and explain a bit what digital twin is and how we used it in CREST.
Great, thanks Dora, and good morning everyone. Let me just share my screen. Okay, that goes. So, okay, hopefully you can see everything now. Okay, so my name is Scott Young. I'm Senior Project Manager and an architect at Urban City. We specialise in digital twins. So just a brief history about ourselves. We are based up in Ålesund in Norway. Our background is actually offshore digital twin simulation. We were established 20 years ago, and we are focused on the kind of offshore industry. But 5 years ago, we've branched out into the city aspect, and CREST is one of those first projects which we've been involved in. And obviously it's about visualizing and simulating the climate change affecting all these coastal cities. So why digital twins? As an architect, my background is usually bits of paper and trying to communicate very complex ideas. This sketch that I did here just kind of summarizes what is a normal process when we're talking about climate change risks with people. We look at bits of paper, plans, etc. And as Anita showed in her slide, one of the workshops was 2D, and that is a very traditional format that we deal with. At Open City, we've got a belief that 3D information is much better at communicating these very complex ideas, especially when you're dealing with a lot of large data. So this is a bit of a factoid, but essentially humans can understand data very quickly in a visual format. And when you have 3D data, you can kind of comprehend these problems much easier, much quicker. So digital twins are great. They have a huge amount of data, and that data can be very complex and we don't intuitively understand it. And machines are also fantastic at data processing, crunching through those numbers, that data, and analyzing problems, but they're not creative. They don't see the problems that we do. And then humans are amazing at evaluating risk, and we can process these things at visual input, but we're not great at evaluating that risk at speed. So what we try to do with digital twins is take the strengths of all these parts and bring them together in a way that we can kind of quickly communicate and process visual information. So this is just an example. This is also where we're based, but it gives you an idea of the level of data that we bring into A-Twin. This is what the information we bring into Norway. So we bring in population data, the seabed data, the roads, the satellite photographs, the height models, the terrain, the traffic, sun, shadow, and physics, etc. We bring that all into one place so we can understand the issues better. So when it comes to decision making in climate change, for us, it's all about communication. And the better we are at communicating, the better we can understand and we can increase our understanding of these issues. By doing that, we can make positive decisions. We can make the right decisions if we have all the information in front of us. So as Anita kind of suggested, as she talked about, when it came to the workshops, we looked at one problem for each of the cities. That problem could be broken down into different scenarios, but it's usually one problem. And we thought, let's see how we can compare digital twins and how people understand digital twins compared to the traditional 2D format. So we had a group and we split into two. One was the more traditional format, and the other was the digital twin format. And we got them to look at the same problem, but with these different kind of means of communication. And then we look at the end of it, we compared the understanding of both the groups, so we could see who understood better. And as Anita suggested, the digital twins seem to kind of understand things better. However, normally when you're dealing with 2D traditional plans, it's quite easy. You can look at the plans very quickly. Everyone's used to maps. You can quickly discuss and make a decision. With the digital twins, there was a process of education. And so when I was at these workshops, we would do a short presentation of what a digital twin is, similar to what I've just done now. And we would educate people and show them what a digital twin is capable of. And then once they had that understanding, we could then have the discussion and then make the decision. So people weren't fixated on the technology and what it could and could not do, is they had an understanding of it. And so we found that was very good way of easing people into that new technology. The picture on the left you've already seen from Anita, that was Bordeaux, and that was my colleague Paul, fantastic group of people. And these workshops all had a real mixture of different people, some from the municipalities, some were public, but they're all very engaged. And as you see, on the one on the right, it's Klobjig. People are around and start pointing and discussing it and ask for us to move the twin around, and it becomes a real focal point because you can change your viewpoint at any point. So what we looked at was what if scenarios, both for Kristiansund, Klobjig and Bordeaux. And if you're interested, there's videos, and you can see the website here, and you can look at these videos. And at the end of this presentation, I have a video of Kristiansund, so you can see what we're doing. But for Kristiansund, the issue here was what happens to mobility and how extreme weather affects that mobility. Kristiansund is a series of small islands, which is slightly further north than Ålesund, where we're based, and you can see a picture of that on the right. And what this picture is showing is the bridges, which are highlighted with these pin tools, and then areas of importance as well. And you can see the light blue areas which are showing the flooding. And one of the problems Kristiansund suffers from is when the weather is extreme, then people can't travel over the bridges, and so these islands become separated from each other. And what does that do if one bridge is closed, but maybe the ferries which connect the islands are open, or if all the bridges and ferries are closed? What happens to people moving around? And then also what happens when flooding is compounded on that? And you'll see the video at the end of this, which explains it a bit more. And then Klobjig, this was a mixture of both marine and river flooding. There's an area of allotments that you can see bound in the red dye, red line to the top right here. And this is an area where people have, they've got their own planting, but they've also got some housing as well. And the concern was what happens if the sea level increases, if there's flooding, or if the levees, which are there protecting the area, if they fail, what happens to that area? So again, we're showing the flooding in the yellow zoning area, what happens. And you can see that obviously the area outlined in red is very badly affected. And then for Bordeaux, again, it's a mixture of marine and river flooding, and it's a very, very large city. And as you can see here, we're looking at whether it's just a normal day, whether it's a 100-year flooding, 1 in 1,000, both for river and marine flooding. And here on the right, you're seeing the buildings which are affected by the flooding. They're coloured. And so the dark purple is the flooding on the ground, and the red is the buildings which are affected. So very quickly we could have a discussion, very clearly we could see those buildings which were affected, and we could zoom in, we could get down to street level, or we could fly very high, almost to a satellite level, to get an overview of what was happening. So this is kind of a short video, and you may hear some music in the background, but I'll talk over it at the same point. So this is Christiansand, where we're talking about. You can see it's a series of islands, and it's very, very, very affected by extreme weather. And Ingrid will talk much more about this in her presentation. But we're looking at the centre of Christiansand here. And when we do the workshops, we would highlight the areas where the actual workshop was being held so people could orientate themselves, and we'd show people the centres and highlights of the landmarks of their town, so people, once they orientate themselves, they could understand the problem slightly better. And very often we would zoom out and look at things. So here we're looking at population density. Norway has rules and regulations that you can't get down to the building level, but roughly 250 square metre resolution. And here we're looking at what we call the mobility network, both the roads and the ferries. And here you're seeing the scenarios that we're looking at in the digital twin here. And both normal day, if there's an accident on one of the bridges, if it's high wind, or if there's flooding. So here we're just looking at a normal day, and as you can see, we have these ribbons which are simulating the amount of traffic which is flowing along the roads at any point in time. And you can see the traffic increases at different times of the day. So this is just like a normal day as we go through. And then what happens is like this main bridge, which is the main point of contact from the mainland into Christiansand. What happens if there's an accident there? As you can see on the other islands, the traffic's increasing because there's no way for the traffic to get off the islands. And then here's Storm B. All the bridges are closed, and then the ferries are trying to take up the capacity of that movement, but as they're pedestrian, we're limited. So it's a real problem with all these islands, how to kind of like move between the schools, workplaces, and homes. And then here with the flooding, you can see flooding's highlighted in red, just to make clear. And then purple here showing the 2090 levels. And you can see it's very badly affecting the industrial area of Christiansand. So we find these kind of colours and this ability to move around and zoom in, zoom out of the model means that the problems which are affecting Christiansand in this example are very easily communicated much into greater detail than what would be normal for 2D maps. And again, just being able to zoom out and be able to see from afar what is happening with the twin is great. So that just gives you an idea of what we're capable of and what we've done with all the cities. And I would really encourage you all to go onto the Vimeo website and to have a look at the other Klobjig and Bordeaux. They're both very good and they explain very clearly the problems that both of those cities are facing. And that's myself finished. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Scott, for this. All right, so I would like to invite Ingrid and Rosemary to share their perspectives. They also organized workshop in Norway.
Yes, hi. Thank you, and thank you very much, Dora, and thank you very much, Scott. It was nice to see the videos of Kristiansund again. So my name is Ingrid, and I'm an international advisor at Møre and Romsdal County Council. I also have Rosemary Aghedo with me today, and she will. She's working for Kristiansund municipality, so she will talk more specifically about their. They were the case in this project. So we've been asked to talk about the role of a policymaker in this project and what we got from it. And I think we need to start then with the objectives, because looking at the objectives that Dora showed earlier, the most important objectives for us was objective 3 and objective 4, obviously. So in terms of capacity building among citizens, but also professionals in the municipality in terms of climate challenges, and then engagement of citizens. So I think it's really important for us to have the output that we have from CREST, which has been quite significant for us, that it's already defined in the overall objectives of the project. So I want to do a quick, I know you've seen this with from Scott's presentation and also from Anita's presentation, but I just want to do very quickly some of the activities that we had in Kristiansund. So first we had the citizen survey, then we had focus group discussion with professionals, and then we had the co-creation workshop where we mix lay people and professionals, and half of the group had the digital twin as a tool, and half of the group had maps as a tool to discuss these scenarios that we see up on the screen. And for us, we had two goals going into this project. We wanted to see what concerns our citizens had in terms of these climate threats, and we also wanted to see how they would act and what information they needed. And then in terms of policy, we wanted to develop a best practice citizen engagement policy, which Rosemary will talk about later. So in Kristiansund, we have something called the Risk and Vulnerability Team. So they're the ones who are responsible for all services in times of emergency. And the emergency like this, like the scenarios we had here, could be that the bridges are closed, we have extreme weather, we have people isolated. And throughout the project, they were involved, the leader of that group was involved in the findings from each of our activities. So when we had the results from the citizen survey, we shared it with that group. When we had the focus group of professionals, the team leader was actually participating in that, and again in the co-creation workshop. So that means that all of the findings from the project, all of the feedback from the citizens was shared continuously with the emergency services, with the risk and vulnerability analysis teams in Kristiansund. So I just want to mention that because for us, the result from this project is not only in terms of policy development, it's also in terms of actual contact between professionals and citizens, exactly like Anita described, and for the citizens to know that their feedback is taken seriously and listened to by the relevant parties. And I think that's a really important result for us that I think we didn't know at the beginning of the project that that was going to be so significant. So I just want to mention that. And then Rosemary, if you will move on then to talk about the Kristiansund municipality's role. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Ingrid. A little introduction about myself. My name is Rosemary Agado. I work as a sustainability consultant at Kristiansund Municipality, and I work with policy stakeholders to implement environmental and climate-friendly projects in the municipality. So as you can see here, this is a picture from one of the workshop where we use the physical maps, where we had different stakeholders from different sectors coming together to examine these climate problems and have discussions about it. But first of all, as Ingrid mentioned, to understand the value for us as policymakers, I think it's important we ask a main question, which is why did Christensen join this project in the first place? And we actually received invitation for this project in spring of 2023, and we decided that it's important for us to be part of this project because Christensen is a coastal city with its city center located very close to the sea surface, so which makes the project highly relevant for us. And taking that into cognizance when going into this project, we also realized that often we found out that discussions about climate change can be quite challenging because people have various opinions about it. And as a municipality, it is important for us to know how to engage our citizens in this um, discussion, how the citizens respond in case of emergency situation, and what is expected of us as policymakers, and what they need us to provide in terms of quick response and emergency services. So the digital twin in the CREST project enabled us to discuss this while avoiding controversy that often comes with discussing climate change as a whole. And we found that the digital twin is able to show in a very clear and concise way um, the effect of climate crisis on people's homes, workplaces, schools, and even bridges. That is concerning their mobility um, and their day-to-day activity. And this means that we can then discuss this in order to get value from the project and through the digital twin. And it is important for us as the municipality and the council to discuss this with different stakeholders so we can identify and address the real challenges that the population faces from a grassroots perspective, because we think this project really helped us to involve people that we're not necessarily that are not necessarily usually involved in the decision making process, but through the digital twin it was easier to attract people to have these discussions. Next slide, please. Thank you. And then this is a picture we've seen a lot during this presentation. It shows Christensen and the 4 islands that make up Christensen, which is shows why this project is very, very important to us. And through this project, we have carried out focus group discussions, we have conducted co-creation workshops, we have had in-depth direct interviews with different stakeholders. And at the end, we can conclude that the digital twin is a valuable tool that is effective and very engaging for citizens, in the sense that citizens can have broad discussions while removing the controversy from the climate change discourse. And this is very important for us because it helps the citizens to envision possible solution rather than focusing on who contributes to the problem, who started the problem in the first place. And it kind of removes that and lets us focus on the way forward. What's the next step? What can we do? How can we move on? Which is quite important for us in the municipality and as policymakers. And through this project, the city has learned more about the citizens and their expectation during emergency situations. It has provided valuable insight into the local status quo in terms of emergency services, in terms of what are our backup plans in a situation where we have extreme climate events, which is prone to happening since we're in a coastal area. And it has also enabled us to understand how the municipality can quickly deal with these climate challenges and what can be done better in terms of managing extreme climate situations. And one very interesting thing I would like to add is that in Christensen, we had so many tangible outputs from this project, starting with a policy guidebook, which we were able to create at the end of the project. And this policy guidebook includes very direct suggestions to different policy stakeholders in different departments. So we're talking about policymakers in the transport sector, in the health sector, in the um, um, emergency preparedness sector. So these were very targeted, which was really nice and really helpful for us as a municipality. And we also developed an emergency and preparedness guidebook. So what would happen in the next 50 years, in the next 90 years, if we have extreme climate events? So it kind of makes us think ahead, which is really nice for the municipality, and we are even more prepared. And another tangible outputs we had from this project is being able to produce a citizen engagement book for Christensen. So this citizen engagement book is specifically for Christensen because it takes into account how we can provide better communication and dissemination activities to different stakeholders, different groups, and lay citizens. And this citizen engagement handbook is already being used in other projects because we have Citizen Lab here in Christensen, and this is has been very useful for us to engage citizens. And one thing we have noticed is that with this citizen guidebook, we've been able to attract more people who are now part of the decision-making process. So we now have people who are part of the decision-making process from the beginning stage till the end, and not just put them randomly at some point, but now they can follow the process of decision making in the municipality from beginning all through till the end. And we now have a better feedback system with them and more open communication, which has also built trust, because trust is a very important thing which we value here in the municipality, and we think that this project has helped to increase that. And finally, we think that the city has been given a tool, which is the digital twin, that shows the impact of climate change and provided a framework on how to communicate and learn best practices for us as policymakers and for the citizens as well. So, the lessons learned from this project would definitely be applied to similar projects in the future and help Christiansen become better positioned to become a better climate resilient city. So thank you very much. Next slide, please. I think, thank you. Yeah, now thank you again.
Thank you very much, Ingrid and Rosemary. I would like to ask, maybe stop, Sylvia, can we stop the recording? I think we agreed to stop at this point.
I think we can say hello to the people who are seeing the webinar registration, and we are stopping the recording and starting to an open discussion with the participant.
Perfect, thank you very much.